And 5,
5,
4,
4,
3,
3,
2,
2,
1.
1. Cool.
We should start singing A Whole New World in sync, and that would be the syncing system. I think it would be
I don't even
better.
know that song.
What?
I don't know that.
I can show you the world, shining, shimmering.
Okay, what Disney is that from?
Tell me,
that's a Disney song, isn't
when
it?
Did you ask? Let your heart decide. Yeah.
Mermaid? Little Mermaid?
A whole new world.
What is it
A
from?
new fantastic point of view. No one to tell us
what is
no,
it from?
or where to
Aladdin.
go, or say we're
It's
only
Aladdin.
dreaming. A whole new world.
Have you been watching?
A dazzling place I
Okay.
never knew. All right. Welcome to Unqualified Opinion, Scott's version of socializing. How's it going, Scott?
That's mean.
It is mean, especially in these trying times.
And yet I sit here and play with the random number generator trying to guess which number will come up next. It's pretty fun.
That's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. It's a random number generator. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no pattern by definition. All right.
Maybe if I click it long enough, the pattern will appear.
So for context, the reason Scott is playing around with the random number generator on Google is because today we're doing the Book of Questions, which is what we do after every book club episode. Book of Questions is just a book of 291 random questions. Scott will give me a number, and then I will read that question, and then we will answer it. Scott this time decided to grab a random number generator because he doesn't trust himself to keep from repeating the same numbers that he gave out before.
I can only pick like 20 numbers between 1 and 291, and I keep guessing them again and again. And it's also really hard to think of one I haven't guessed. So
there are so many statements to unpack there. You can only name 20 numbers between 291, and somehow you're also guessing them. I'm not sure how any of this lines up, but it's going to make it exciting.
Well, it's a lot easier just to click a button. I don't like thinking of numbers. I don't like anything to do with numbers. So let's go with, well,
let's go with drinks first.
Well, thank God the liquor store was open today because I was really sick of, I have a whiskey my mom gave me, and a good one, but I don't like whiskey. I've decided that after she gave me the bottle, I can't, it's a good bottle. I don't know. You may know it, but I don't have it in reach. Yeah. I like sip it and then I don't want to finish it.
Really?
So, yeah.
You sound like a little bitch.
Says the man who drinks White Claw.
Truly. Thank you very much.
Truly.
It's even worse.
No, I don't know. Maybe I just don't have enough testosterone to drink it.
To drink whiskey?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't like whiskey, that's totally fine. I mean,
You're pretty disappointed, I can tell.
I like whiskey.
I know you do.
And I have ideas of cool drinks to make with whiskey that I now know you will not enjoy. So that's
I'll drink it. I'll drink whiskey in a drink. I was drinking it straight.
Oh, okay, so just straight you're not good with, but
Yeah,
otherwise.
I actually don't like any liquor straight. So maybe it's not just whiskey. I don't like any liquor straight.
That's fair. That's totally fair. But if you were doing like an old fashioned or something like that,
Oh, I like old. Oh no, I totally like old fashions.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank God we can still hang out.
Because it's the only mixed cocktail we know how to order. Well, I don't drink, so I'm having a beer. Because
What beer?
It is an Indeed, so you know that one. Flavor Wave IPA. It's pretty.
Flavor Wave. Can you show
All
us
their
one?
cans are pretty.
Ooh, how would you describe that can?
Psychedelic.
Psychedelic? Yeah, I can't tell what the fuck's going on.
It's like, I don't know. It's like a city that's in pastel colors, but the city is actually made up of items such as boom boxes and skateboards and record players and video game consoles.
That's pretty sweet, actually.
They do. Whoever designs their artwork, all their cans are pretty cool. But yeah, this one you could look at this one for a while. There's interesting shit on it. But anyway, it's good. It's an IPA. I mean, it's a good IPA. Indeed's a good brewing company.
Yeah, I like Indeed.
Yeah.
So my beer is significantly less impressive than what you're drinking. Desperate times, Scott. Desperate times. I'm drinking Foster's. Do you know what Foster's is? It's like generic Australian beer.
Yeah.
Giant can of Foster's.
Oh, I know those. Yeah. The big. They're not tall boys. They're fat boys. I don't think that's the name, but they're.
Oh, it's only 750 ounces. So it's not that much beer. But Foster's is just like a generic light beer. A lot of different countries have similar beers that they export. You know.
So did you have a party?
Special. No, so I was hanging out with my parents and they bought 2 cans of these and we drank one of them last night and they gave me the other one for me to take back home with me. So now I have this giant can of Foster's that I'm drinking. And it's obviously not going to be enough booze, so I'm probably going to open a bottle of rosé or something later.
Oh, yes.
Got to get my man points up, you know?
I got some man points today. I did leg day in the basement.
Oh, nice. Have you been working out regularly?
This last week was just I think I was adjusting to my new 3-day-a-week stint at the isolation hotel. So I didn't work out at all because it was just like all thrown off. Totally new schedule because I was working till 2 to 10, and so
oh geez,
on 3 days a week. So it's like a late night, and then some days. Oh,
for the morning, you get the morning off, right? You don't have to go into your other job.
I mean, no. I'm salaried. Like,
They expect you to be doing stuff?
No, I mean, if I said I was doing another thing, if I said I was already doing this 8-hour thing, you know, that's technically okay to not look at my email. But, like, I can't not reply to people for 3 days. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Not appropriate. So, but I also cut down my other 2 days of work. So I'm working a little over 80 hours a week.
A little over 80 hours a week.
I mean, so I pay period. Sorry.
Okay.
40 hours a week.
Whoa.
Sorry.
Yeah, you freaked me out there for a second.
No.
Yeah, that would be awful.
I'm not used to working over 40 hours. Usually I work a little under because I'm very, very productive. And I don't take lunch breaks because I just get bored. So I'm definitely working over 40 a week now, which is also an adjustment. And I don't know, it's hard to switch between both jobs. It's like very different skill set. So yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway. You've been busy, it sounds like.
Well, my schedule, the fact that everything can be done asynchronously has given rise to more drinking at night while working. So that's a thing that's probably not good. I do enjoy the freedom during the day of being able to take a run at like 4. Or, you know, go to the grocery store or cook up an actual lunch and spend that whole hour if I wanted to. It just means, though, that there's no point in the day where I just cut things off and say, all right, I'm not going to think about work for the rest of the day at all. It's always looming. And I think I mentioned in an earlier podcast that one of the things that I was doing to keep my sanity between work-life balance was to have that clear boundary, and I've totally lost it. So I would work in the morning, and then I would maybe go for a run and have lunch, and then start working again for a bit, and then around like 3, I'd go do errands, come back, and then maybe have dinner, practice some trumpet, and then at that point it's like 8, and then I'll pick up work again, and at that point I'll be working with some whiskey and do that for like 3 hours. And so it's like all mushed together in terms of work and life, and that can be exhausting because then I'm always thinking about what I have to get done. And so I'm not sure if it's a if the pros outweigh the cons, honestly. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Or if I should just be more regimented about my work.
I feel like I have less time, even though I have more time. It feels like I have less time because I don't have those because normally I'm done at 4, and I know I don't have to do any work until the next day, and so I have like the all afternoon free. And now it's like, oh, I've been done at 4, but then I'll like come back to it, and like then I'll go and like. And I'll work for another hour, and like tonight, I'm like, oh, I need to do some stuff tonight that I was going to do on Friday that I didn't do. It's like, because I was at this stupid COVID-19 thing. It's just, it feels like there's less, like you're saying, discrete chunks of time. Well, it's gonna be this way for a while, so.
Yes, it is.
Use and bitching about it.
Yeah.
And it's snowing outside. Look at this shit.
It's snowing?
Look at that shit. Look at that shit.
You should have led with that.
5-6 inches. What the fuck? So I've been inside all day.
That sucks.
And I can't get my exercise in.
It was more than 20 degrees Celsius.
Oh, shut up.
Today. I'm afraid that was super fucking nice.
You're so mean.
All right, give me a number.
52. Actually, 69.
Don't you have a random number generator? Doesn't it tell you the number?
I wanted 69, though.
Okay.
I want to see if it's anything sexual.
Yeah, you've already done this one.
Okay, 52.
Jesus, so the first one that you pick is a repeat.
No, that was me.
I know, that's why you should stop trying to pick and just
Okay, I won't. I will
computer.
listen to the computer. The computer says 52.
Oh, this is dumb. While walking in the park, you see a stranger and realize with absolute certainty that if you go over and introduce yourself, the two of you will fall in love more deeply than you even imagined possible. But you also know that in 6 months, the person will be hit by a bus and killed. Would you go over to the person or leave? Assume you know that once you decide, you'll forget what lies ahead.
No. The answer would be no.
Why?
Because if you don't know, see, if you knew, if after you chose that and you still knew after you made the choice that they would die, that means you're going in with your eyes open. But if you did it and then you forgot that they were going to die in 6 months, that seems like a big waste of time. Emotional labor for 6 months.
Yeah, because it's going to utterly devastate you, and that's going to leave this massive scar.
And then you'd measure everyone else against that.
Yeah.
Which would be bad.
Yeah, that would suck. So obviously the answer is if they're like a 9 or a 10, then yes. But otherwise, no.
You just do it for the sex. You could find someone else you wouldn't. You could find someone else you wouldn't fall in love with who's a 9 or 10.
No, I am kidding. I think that there is some value to the argument of, hey, you don't know if you'll ever experience that level of love and commitment and passion with someone, and to have a guaranteed opportunity to be able to experience that is going to add value to your life. But at the same time, I'm with you in the idea that the pain will probably end up resulting in being so damaging that it ultimately wouldn't be worth it.
This is a pretty simple one. So I went on a walk with this guy yesterday. That met this guy, and he said, I think you'd really like him as a friend. And so we went on a walk. Nice guy. It's nothing romantic at all. I'm not attracted to him, but just very, very nice guy. And he works for the legislature right now, so he's working like 80 hours. He is working 80-hour weeks, because of all of. Oh no, we're going back to COVID-19. Okay, now that didn't last long, because of all of the shit going on right now. He's working a lot at the state legislature, so he only had time for an hour walk, which is cool, you know. And we were talking about technology, and he has a flip phone, which I kind of admire. That's really badass. And he's like, yeah, I don't use any technology. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. And like, how do you meet people? It's like, He's like, I'll like walk up to them if they look interesting. I'll just go walk up to them. And so this question reminded me of that. Like, I would never do that.
Just go up and
walk up to someone.
Talk to
And like talk to them like, what am I missing out on? Am I missing out on true love? Because I'm not going like this guy going up and just like, oh, that looks like an interesting person. I'm gonna go talk to them.
I think that part of it's also that culturally it's not as accepted anymore, but it definitely was like even 10 years ago.
And he said people really accept it. They like think it's weird at first, but like they don't mind it. You know,
I mean, humans are social animals. We want connection, and people feel flattered if someone approaches them. And I don't know, like I would be flattered if someone came up to me and just said, like, "Hey, I wanted to get to know you because you're interesting," right? And so, yeah, there's probably something to it. Not right now.
No, not right now. People would run the other way. But,
yeah,
I don't know. But maybe after this ends, I'll try doing that. Like this question suggested this person did.
Yeah, and the thing for me is approaching people in that fashion just feels so intimidating and daunting, and it's so easy to get in your own head about like, oh, what if I look like a freak or a loser or most importantly a creep? You don't want to seem like a creep, you know? But that's probably just overthinking it, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I've had girls come up to me and introduce themselves, and it's always been kind of flattering. So
that is
regardless
nice.
of where that goes, which is always nowhere because I never do anything because it's me.
But it's nice.
But it's nice.
It's flattering.
Yeah. Anyway. Next question.
Next question. 127. I haven't guessed that one before. I know that. I feel it. It's a new one.
Okay, sure you do. A movement to reduce political corruption maintains that the only way to keep politicians even close to honest is to require them to always wear tiny video bugs that record their every interaction and to post them all online. Would you support such monitoring of key elected officials?
Oh my God, no. What a repulsive idea. What? What kind of dumbass question? What kind of... Okay. How politicians look to the general public and how they actually act, two different things. And the public never actually wants... They may say they want to see how the sausage is made, but they don't actually want to see how the sausage is made if they like good governance. Because there is some backroom stuff that goes on that maybe it's not illegal by any means, but you're doing cost-benefit analyses. I'm going to put it as simple as that. You're like, I'm going to use the COVID-19. Oh, this is so awful. It comes up, but it's actually a really good example. So talking about reopening or not reopening the country. Now, Trump may be an exception to this, but anyone is going to be having these dialogues because you have to do that cost-benefit analysis of economic gains versus people's lives. And there is a cost-benefit behind that of saying, if we open this up, X number of people will die. You know, there's some really frank conversations going on behind the scenes that have to happen by politicians to come to that conclusion. Those conversations could not happen if the public was listening in. You couldn't have those conversations. And the scary thing for me is that we're already approached, I mean, like Twitter, with social media in general, that barrier is starting to break down, which I think is really concerning because it's now harder and harder to have those kind of backdoor conversations, those secretive conversations, the private conversations, and I think that's not a good thing.
But it's also not as straightforward as assuming that those private conversations are always going to be highly essential and necessary, right? Because there's also the flip side of having individuals with less accountability be able to make these kinds of backroom deals leading to issues with corruption, connections with big lobbying firms and companies that lead to deals after their careers elected officials. All of that stuff is part and parcel to the idea of this kind of horse trading that happens, right? Because I agree with you. I think that going toward what they say is tiny video bugs that record their every interaction. That's obviously way too far. But at the same time, I do support the idea of increased transparency with legislation, because the majority of Americans have no fucking idea what happens in Congress. And
a lot of Congress people don't know what happens in Congress.
Yeah, and part of that is just that we have an uneducated, uninformed public full of people like myself who just don't know what the fuck's going on. But that's also, it's a lot harder to get people to be informed if it's really, really difficult to be able to understand what kinds of trade-offs are being made, what kind of compromises are being made, and even read the fucking document. Like, have you tried reading some of this legislation? It's like fucking impossible to read. And that's obviously a tangent, but
yeah. Well, sometimes it's written in a way that allows interpretation purposefully.
Yeah.
I'm just fascinated. I love that kind of stuff. Anyway, I think we beat that horse. But I don't think it's generally a good idea, and I think there's probably rules and regulations and norms you can put in place norms that used to be in place before this current president that really prevented some of the negative externalities of kind of closed door negotiations. That people just agreed we don't do that.
So can you explain further?
Well, I think that there's a lot of kind of handshake agreements, and I'm not going to get into specifics because I can't reference any right now, but I have heard about them, that you agree to a certain amount of decorum, like Republicans and Democrats in Congress, or the Congress and the White House agree, like, we're not going to be sneaky. We're not going to do these things to like try to get stuff passed without you knowing or approving it. And it's generally accepted that for hundreds of years that we operated in that way. There were the norms, not necessarily rules or regulations you had to follow, but norms that people behaved in a certain way.
But hasn't a lot of that broken down?
And a lot of that has broken down, not just with Trump. Trump's kind of a symptom of it, but a lot of that is breaking down.
Yeah.
Which, I would say is probably more of an argument for kind of more stringent oversight. But I think, historically, you had politicians who were doing what they believed was really the best for the country, and they wanted to govern really well.
You've even seen it in this COVID crisis, where you have certain Democrats who are like pushing Green New Deal policies into the relief strategy. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
You shouldn't do that.
It's like, I get why you really want to push your Green New Deal policies, but holy shit, can we just deal with the fucking crisis that we have right now? And you know what that does? It delegitimizes your otherwise legitimate claims about climate change by trying to roll it in and sneak it through in such a slimy fashion.
Well, both sides do that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, as someone who's a liberal, like, I'm going to be a lot more critical of the liberal side of the debate, because I want to see us not look like disgusting, like, lowlifes.
And I wasn't cogent of all this in the 1990s, but I have a feeling that it was a little before Newt Gingrich came, and Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House, and he was really a turning point in becoming much more about identity politics. Mm-hmm. Before Newt Gingrich, kind of in the earlier Clinton years and Bush years, it was more like a staid environment. Like there was that decorum, that those norms that you follow, and like you wouldn't necessarily do shit like that.
But didn't Gingrich like actively push the Republicans to stop conversing with Democrats across the aisle and really just force them to keep the doors closed? Yeah, that's fucked up.
That man.
Ugh. All right, next question.
24.
Would you completely rewrite your child's college application essays if it would help them get into a better school?
No.
Okay. So the thing is, at the end of the day, it's probably not going to make a massive difference unless they're going to a really, really shit school. What college someone goes to, right? It's not going to make or break someone's career,
unless it's an Ivy League. But yeah.
So in my mind, let's say it were the difference between an Ivy League versus a non-Ivy League school. At that point, you have someone who's already very intelligent and highly motivated to instill the idea the of justifying cheating for the sake of getting them that incremental step up does not seem worth the cost to me. And especially these days with the landscape of higher education radically changing and it being continually further divorced from the pragmatism seen in business, it seems less and less important to be pushing for those status symbols in higher education anyway. And so there's no real value in cheating to get into an institution that's based on outdated modes of hierarchy.
Well, I agree with you on not cheating, but I do think there is... I'm going to even use the University of Minnesota for an example. University of Minnesota is not particularly any prestigious school, but it is a far better education than some of the state schools. And I do think there is a certain threshold of education that you will come out ahead. And I interact in my previous role. I interacted with students both from the University of Minnesota and also from the Minnesota State schools. Partly the students going to the Minnesota State schools are going because they are, they can't afford a U of M education. That's the predominant reason. They're bringing less money with them. The schools are underfunded. The professors are lower quality. And I will tell you that in working with them, the U of M students are far more prepared than to work in the workplace than the state school students are.
In what ways?
So I think emotional intelligence, absolutely number one. Emotional intelligence is huge, and that is what a good college will teach you. It's that teamwork, it's that collaboration. So it's not necessarily like specific knowledge, but it's applying that in a real world environment where you have to work with other people.
So how much of it is not the school itself, but the people who self-selected into the school?
I don't know. I mean, it's both. I mean, of course, it's both. I don't know to the degree of either one of those.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I think it's probably a combination of the two. So yeah, I mean, I guess I think it's morally. If let's just say if the essay were one of the deciding components to get into a better school, and let's just say getting into a better school did give you some level of bump, to determine the size, but some level. Then it's just not appropriate. It sets the kid up for failure, I think, more than going to a bad school. That expectation that there's people are going to be taking care of you.
Also, and I don't remember the studies. I think it was research into like Stuyvesant or something like that, and it was a high school, not a college. But it was basically looking at people who either went there or who didn't, and the people who didn't actually ended up doing better. Is that right? Am I getting that right? Because they ended up being in an environment, because they were basically at the same intelligence level, but some of them made it just over the bump in the test, and then they ended up a small fish in a big pond, and then the other people who were just slightly under the test and failed ended up a big fish in a small pond. And because that was a confidence boost, and because they were able to show measures of success, it boosted self-confidence and allowed them to actually excel more than the people who ended up in a really competitive school but struggling. Did what I say make any sense? Should I rephrase that?
I understood. I don't know. Well, we can do another podcast on education, but my perspective on education is that the classroom learning itself is probably not the most important piece. It's probably lower down. It's the environment that you're in that is the most important, because this is the developmental stage. I'm talking about undergrad. Graduate school is a different animal. That's get apples and oranges. But undergraduate, it's a developmental space. And as we know about human psychology, if it's a supportive developmental space, people do better. So I think you could have, a very non-competitive school that, because it's well-funded or, whatever, is an extremely great place to go to school and provides a lot of supports. You could also have a wealthy college that doesn't provide a lot of, that's less common, but you could, or a highly selective college. But I think it's that developmental aspect, I think, is so important. That's, while people don't admit it or don't think about it, I think that's where the competitiveness lies. I think the Ivy Leagues are in a different, it's apples and oranges. Ivy Leagues, yes, if you go there, you do have a cachet on your resume and you get access to a network, which is extremely valuable.
But I think that also translates in a lot of other schools as well. It's not just the Ivy Leagues, where part of what you're paying for isn't the education in isolation. It's the status that coincides with having gone to and graduated from a college with a certain level of prestige. So in Minnesota, the fact that we went to Macalester actually does hold sway, right? A place like DC, no one knows where the fuck Macalester is. So it doesn't. But part of why going to Macalester was so goddamn expensive was not because it was that much better than St. Thomas, although it was, because St. Thomas is garbage. It was because we're paying for the status of saying, hey, I'm smart enough, I'm intelligent enough, I'm elite enough to have gone to this school and graduated from it. And that means something.
I don't think that's really I don't think that's totally what you're paying for. You're paying for a lot of tangible things that college offers that St. Thomas did not offer. There was all the bells and whistles that school had. Everything from the food, which was very good for a college, to, the funding of the departments, to, the fact that we were able to go to Los Angeles for an academic conference, totally free. That's expensive. That's really expensive to supply to students.
It wasn't free. We paid $60,000-$70,000 a year.
What I'm saying, you're right, but I'm saying that the cost, that's what you're getting for it, right? You're getting a lot of those experiences. The study abroad, where that if the program is more expensive, you just paid Macalester's tuition. Study abroad is also very expensive because you don't have the students on campus giving you.
So I completely agree with you that there were tangible benefits. What my argument is that even if you stack those tangible benefits up, there's going to be a gap at the top, which is based on that status. And
you don't know. Haven't looked at Macalester's balance sheet, Steve. You don't know that.
What I'm saying isn't about the spend of the college. What I'm talking about is the value of the education coming out of the college, right? So a lot of what you can get out of a really nice college like Macalester, you can get 90% of at a much cheaper school. But what you're also getting is the prestige and the signaling mechanism that allows you to get into a higher pool of jobs because you graduated from a nicer school.
I don't disagree with you. I'm not sure about the 90% figure, but I generally, in concept, don't disagree.
Yeah,
I know that 90% came out of your ass.
Oh, of course it did. It's unqualified opinion.
It's totally unqualified. The amount of facts, quote unquote, that are thrown around in this podcast boggles the mind.
Oh, geez. Do you want to go to the next one?
Both of us. Yeah, 250. That's a big
250.
one. So I moved rooms. I actually set up a new standing desk in my back room to work. I took your advice, Steve.
You got a standing desk?
I can't. Well, it's not. It's a tall desk that doesn't go down. So I can sit on a stool, which I'm doing now.
Oh, nice. Nice.
But I took your advice and I separated my workspace from my non-workspace.
Oh, nice. Is it helping?
I did it on Friday, so I don't know yet. We'll see.
Well, next week we'll talk about it. Cool. So 250. What sorts of things would you do if you could be as outgoing and uninhibited as you wished? That's boring and vague.
I don't like that question. I
don't
want
either.
Sex.
I
don't want to be outgoing. I'm an introvert.
This is dumb. You want to skip it?
Let's do that. Let's skip that one. 166.
Ugh, I don't even know how to respond to this thing. What sorts of things would you do if you could be as outgoing and uninhibited as you wished? I don't know. Approach people? Go skydiving more? I don't fucking know. That's dumb. What was it to what?
166.
166. I'm way off. Given that a woman can conceive a child long after menopause by using a frozen egg, is there an age beyond which it should be illegal for women to bear children? Why? What about men? If so, how would you punish violators? Oh boy.
That's disgusting. I don't want to think about that.
Should there be an age?
Well, obviously, at some point, yes, because you don't want a bunch of 99-year-olds having babies and then dying in 6 months. So there's an extreme on that end.
So to be clear, we're starting with the world assuming that we don't have anti-aging technology.
Yes, Steve.
Or the potential of anti-aging technology.
Yes, Steve. It's this world. But
this reality has the potential of anti-aging technology, which would make it more reasonable for someone who's 70 to have a kid.
This world has the potential for a lot of things.
True. So,
no, status quo on everything else. This is the only variable that changes.
Okay. So what is your answer here?
Yeah, at some level, because it becomes a burden on the government and society to have a bunch of single children.
But what would that level be? Where would you draw that line?
I don't know. It would probably be somewhat arbitrary, like all policy is. Because you have to draw the line somewhere.
But so you would actually set an age instead of say there'd be some kind of test that people take to say, are you fit for
Tests are too hard. Tests are inherently too difficult. You can't tests in policy. Tests don't work very well.
But you could look at two people who are 65 side by side, and they look like they're from different decades, from different generations, even.
That's true, but you can't do tests. It's really hard to do tests in It's like saying, I look at you. Oh, I think you can drive a lot better than that person. That might be very true.
Also, thank you. As an Asian, thank you.
As an Asian. But you can't until you're 16. Period. I don't care if you're a NASCAR driver. Well, actually, that's probably scary. I don't care if you are the best driver in the world. You can't drive until you're 16. You can't imagine if you started having because if you had a test for one thing, you have to open the door for tests for other things. There's a reason government doesn't test. We don't have testing regimens in this country and our general democracies. It's really messy. It's really, really, really messy.
And I guess it's really costly too.
And extremely costly and complicated. No, it's so much easier to draw an arbitrary line. And then everyone agrees to it. The thing is, everyone now agrees to 16. Everyone agrees to 21. Not everyone, but the vast majority of people. So if you set a date, people will agree to it. They'll agree to it eventually. And it'll become a norm, and that's just what you do.
So can you give me a general range, an age range, that you would start cutting it off? Like how old? Are we talking 50s, talking 60s, talking 70s?
I'd say 70 or over. I don't know what it would be, but it would probably be 70 or over.
Okay. So 50s and 60s you're okay with?
Yeah. I mean, I want to say, I'm trying to think, like, psychologically, would there be damage to the child being raised by, well, can she breastfeed? No, it didn't say that. So she can't breastfeed. So it has to be formula milk.
Yeah.
So that is actually slightly detrimental to the baby already.
It is, but it's an option that a lot of people choose.
It's people. I'm saying it is detrimental, but a lot of people. But this is an ultimate. This is like they can't breastfeed.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest risk is obviously that the mother dies while the child is still very young. So if someone had a kid at like 80 and then died at 84.
That's really that, and then the kid goes into government custody if the father or the father would have to get social services, and the kid's development is screwed up.
Okay, so here's the second part of the question: what about men? And this just makes it much more complicated, right? Because
no, it doesn't. How?
Because currently it's a lot easier for men who are older to still have kids, and that has been happening. Like in society, there are regularly men who are in their 70s who have kids.
So this is through, but the poll. So this would be through. You'd have to go. This would be a medical procedure, right? Presumably. Like, you can't do this at home. Like, you can't implant an egg into yourself at home.
No, you would do in vitro like anyone else.
So you'd go to the doctor, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to control it a little tighter. You'd have to have both the couples there, both the parents there. You'd have to have the male and the female, and both would have to be below the same threshold.
Oh, I guess I was thinking about them independently. So you could have a couple where there's a guy who's in their 50s with a woman who's in her 70s, and then you could also flip the genders around. And in one case, currently society would be very uncomfortable with it, right? Society would be very uncomfortable with a woman in her 70s giving birth to a child with a man in his like 50s. But if the genders were reversed, that happens regularly. Well, not women in her 50s, but you know what I mean, right? Like older men with younger women.
I'm putting this out as a as a question to be answered. But when you get in vitro fertilization, are you supposed to have the male partner, your partner, there with you, or can you just go?
No, we
don't know that. So I'm saying there could be policy fixes around that, but I simply do not think you should have a child with a 95-year-old adult male. I think there's developmental challenges to that are far more detrimental to the child and society.
Let's stick to the age you gave before, which was 70.
Well, I don't know. I said range. I don't know if I haven't thought this policy out fully in the last 20 minutes with a beer, but.
So you see it gets messy, right? Because then let's talk about same-sex couples.
Well, it gets messy, and this is where policy gets interesting, because you can develop something that will make 95% of the people happy. You're always going to have people who fall outside of the expectations, and you have to deal with them on a case-by-case basis.
The easiest way is just to say, anyone over 70, no children. Or anyone over this age, no children. But then you might have one of the partners under that age and one over that age, and then what happens? Right? Is that capping it?
Yeah.
What if it's a same-sex couple where only one of them is contributing?
Well, that's a very good point. And I think maybe as I think about this more, and I'm not going to think about it tonight, but if I were to think about it more, maybe it would be a hard no after 70. I don't know.
But is it for being part of the biological process or for being part of the caregiving process that you're concerned about? And then what about, if you're going to talk about both of the parents, then doesn't that open the door toward rejecting single parents?
we already reject single parents in this system. The whole policy system, the welfare state is designed around is more beneficial to couples. The government supports couples, as it should.
Yeah, but it does not actively restrict or prevent a single mother from having a kid.
It makes it damn difficult. It makes it real damn difficult. Because if you are a single mother and a kid, unless you have an endowment, you're going to have a real shitty life. And the government's made it to be that way.
But you get my point here, right? Like, what I'm saying is that it's not illegal for a woman to have a kid on her own, right?
It's not. So maybe you could make it in a way that if you had a child over 70, you'd be absolutely zero support for you from the government. Maybe you get a tax. Maybe you'd have a tax penalty. I don't know. Maybe you don't outlaw it. Maybe you do something like that. So it's really, really disincentivized to do so. Maybe you won't get the child tax credit. That would be a good one. You don't get the tax credit.
Yeah, I think that would be a more reasonable way to do it, right? Just understanding that, like with a lot of other actions in society in which you're sharing the risk around, if you have increased risk of, in this case, dying and therefore requiring the state to provide child support and care, then you should pay that cost a little bit extra.
I'd probably
premium for that cost.
Right. There'd probably be you wouldn't get the tax credit, and then there would probably be a hard stop. Maybe there'd be a tiered system, right? So after 70 or 60 or whatever, maybe even 50, you don't get the tax credit anymore. But then and then another limit, it is illegal to do it. And with the recognition that people work around the system, people always work around the system.
So you would say the same age for men.
Yeah. You can't illegally you can't
and so the risk there would be because the caregivers are dying, right?
Well, the risk would be it would be struck down by the Supreme Court that you can't have. I really don't think you could have one age for men, one age for women. You have to be the same age. You can't discriminate based on sex. Period. It's illegal. So you'd have to have the same age. I don't think that could be defended.
What if you had only one of the parents above that age and the other one below that age?
Well, I think that's where it really gets complicated. And I don't have an answer to that.
Because if the reasoning is around caregiving capacity, then it's really hard to make the argument if one of the caregivers, regardless of whether it's the man or the woman, that person's at risk if you can see the fact that there are single mothers and single fathers out there contributing and actively engaging within society now, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
All right, I think we've gone through that one enough.
I wasn't going any more down that rabbit hole. I don't know.
I'm gonna grab another drink. Are you going to do something?
I already got one.
Oh. All right. Let me see if I can find something. I have to scrounge something up. Sorry about the delay. I had to get some wine and then heat some water and mix some of my weed honey into it. So now I have weed honey wine.
Mead?
No, it's just wine, basically.
And honey.
But
wine and honey, isn't that mead?
No, because I think mead uses honey as the base, like with wine is grapes, mead is honey.
Oh, mead is an alcoholic beverage fermenting honey with water.
Yeah.
With various fruits. It could be kind of mead. Okay.
That does sound good though. But no, this is just weedy booze. Which is like the best thing about this honey is I can now make cocktails, but just add weed to them. So I have weedy cocktails.
That's really nice. That's nice.
So I was doing this on Friday when we were having a movie night. I just put some honey into a gin and tonic, which was great. You just heat the water, you mix the honey in with hot water, and then you just pour that in. It's great. You just got to be careful with how much you put in because it's super strong. But
I'll have to come over to DC just to get some of that and bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you're out. That was quick. 2 weeks?
No. That was from when I was in Death Valley.
Really? From that long ago?
In February.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it lasted a while.
Yeah, because it's still illegal over there. It's hard to get, right?
Michigan is legal.
Take a road trip.
I don't really want to go drive to Michigan. It's legal in Illinois, but you can actually I think there's one in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, so you can get there going north through Wisconsin, which I think might be a little faster than driving down to Illinois.
How long of a drive?
It's a long drive. It's like 6 hours. That's
one way?
Yeah.
Oh.
The land is big out here, Steve.
The Midwest.
You can drive for a long time.
It's a lot bigger than here in the East Coast. Everything is so close together.
Yeah.
It's great. All right. Do you want to do another question?
Yeah. So we did 166. 235.
235. Would you rather have success and everything material you want but few friends, or little success or material well-being but lots of friends?
Well, I already have the former. So I mean, okay.
Wait, you have everything material that you want?
I can't think of anything else I really want.
Oh, I can think of so many things.
I want to travel. I want to have experiences. So maybe that it's not material, but I really want to do that.
Yeah, you need disposable income to be able to travel and have those experiences.
I have so many things I want to do, but not necessarily have. That's why I bought a small house. It's like I don't want a lot of stuff.
You don't want your James Bond car?
Not really. That's a pain in the ass to upkeep. I don't want to keep taking it in to get fixed.
True.
I like my trusty little Kia with its 10-year warranty. Yay. I would be one of those filthy rich people who buy a Honda Civic.
Yeah, you'd be Warren Buffett, basically.
I'm that person.
That is true.
Yeah.
For me, though, in terms of things that I want, I mean, oh yeah, there are tons of things that I want. I love the idea of like experimenting with fancy new toys. It's great.
It doesn't it get boring though.
No, I mean like I would love to have a Tesla. That would be great. I'd love to own a house. That would be nice.
Tesla, you can drive it at 20 miles an hour around DC.
And then on occasion take it out and actually, have some fun.
Yeah, you never. The thing is, you have these ideas, you never do them.
I know.
Not you, but people. But
one thing I've been looking at, I've been binge watching videos of paramotors on YouTube recently. Do you know what this is? Paramotors?
I don't know what a paramotor is.
Oh my god, I have to show you this. This is terrible for the podcast, but I need to show you this for you.
Can I just look it up? Paramotor?
No, I'm going to share my screen. I mean, you can also just look it up, but
it's a hang glider with a propeller on it. That looks fucking terrifying.
Isn't that amazing, though? All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But there's all these random things like that where it's like, if I had the disposable income, I would love to be able to have the agency, not to like hoard a bunch of status symbols, but to like be able to say, oh, that's a really fun idea. I would love to be able to try that, right? In its own way, it's experience building as well, right? Owning a Tesla for the sake of having that toy and being able to experiment with it is an experience. Having a paramotor to be able to play around with it and fly in the sky is a fucking experience, right? But I'm also not so unaware to realize that there is a part of me that really, really values the thrill of having these assets, right? I would love to have a house, not just because it's four roofs, it's four walls and a roof, but because it then instills in me status as a homeowner and provides an investment opportunity that can hopefully accrue wealth. Like, those things do matter to me. I am the kind of person who does feel the value of that and be like, nom, 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 I want to have that status. I want to have those like material assets. Like I want those things. Like that is a part of who I am. Like I can't avoid it. If I'm being truly honest with myself, that is who I am. That's not so much who you are. I've seen that.
What is your, if you had to pick one thing, cost, irrespective of cost, what would it be?
One thing meaning,
like what if you could go and buy it in one, so when it showed up in the receipt, it's one item.
I mean, at this point in time, a house.
A house, okay.
Yeah, that would be the big thing. It doesn't have to be like a super nice house, but ideally not a condo, but a single family home that has some kind of outdoor space at least, and at least 2 bedrooms. Yeah.
That's very practical.
Yeah, it is. It's not like I want like crazy mansions or like infinity pools and private jets and all that shit. Like that sounds like a horrendous lifestyle. It sounds fucking awful.
It sounds very, very stressful.
Yeah. But the other part of this question, right? Because the question says, would you rather have success in everything material you want but few friends, or low success in material well-being but lots of friends? And it's not very well defined, but when I read this, I see few friends and I think, like, I'm totally fine with that. I have a small number of friends who I'm really close with, who I care about and want to keep those connections with, and having friends and staying in touch with them is an investment in and of itself that really you get a lot of value of by having a small number of people that you can really be close with. And so that to me doesn't sound terrible. So that's why I would opt toward the first one of having success in everything material I want and having a few friends, because a few friends is like, fuck yeah, I would love to have this success and then share it with the few people who I really care about.
I'm the same way. The idea of having a lot of friends is really stressful for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want a lot of friends. I can't keep up with them. I just want a few.
I know,
right? It makes
right?
it sound like few is bad. An extrovert wrote this book.
I know, right? A few sounds great. So I get both of the things I want, or I choose between the 2 things I want or the 2 things I don't want. I mean, it's a fucking no-brainer. The other thing I do want to point out, though, is the idea of having little success in your life and limited material well-being. I don't think that's an existence that anybody, if they look deep down, really wants to have, right? Nobody wants to be the guy who's financially dependent, who has to ask their friends or their family for money or support in order to be able to sustain their lives. Nobody wants to be the person who looks at their career and says, I did not achieve the things that I set out to have. It can be cool to say, and I think it's totally valid to say, I don't want certain materialistic things. But I don't think that it translates when it comes to, like, I don't want success or I don't want material well-being. Like, everyone wants material well-being. It just means something different to everyone.
Well, it's a poorly written question because, like, you can have like a Buddhist monk. Maybe they reach nirvana. No, they are very successful, but they don't have any material wealth. But that is their definition of success. So, like, it's just poorly written because you can be successful without material wealth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I don't... But I think we're on the same page.
It's also, like, I think it's unrealistic to say that somebody who's not invested in themselves and passionate enough to try to achieve success can get a lot of friends. Like, if you're the kind of person who's not invested in themselves, you're not going to be able to translate that to a reciprocal relationship with somebody, because there's always going to be an imbalance there, which makes it really sketchy and it's going to seem needy.
My one, I would like, if I had to pick one thing, I've been thinking about this recently because of the current thing. it would be a ranch in a valley in the Rocky Mountains. A massive, sprawling ranch with a big ranch house. Old, from the early 1900s.
Yeah.
A bunch of cattle. I would get so into that.
That would be so cool. I would be able to visit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you could fly in on your private helicopter.
Nah, paramotor, dude. Paramotor.
Yeah, from the East Coast.
Is there a way to get a solar-powered paramotor?
I could just see you doing that if it was stupid.
Oh my god, that would be so fun, dude. A ranch sounds amazing. Would you keep animals?
Yeah, I'd probably have cows, cattle.
And you would learn to ride a horse.
I would learn how. I would have a horse.
Have you ever ridden a horse?
No.
I've ridden a horse before. When I was really young.
How was it?
I think it must have been very tame and well behaved because it was very easy. You just have to be confident. That's the only thing. It's like they can tell if you're not confident, and then they just won't give a fuck about you, and they won't listen to you at all. If you can establish dominance early on and say like, "Hey, I know my shit," and it's not about being excessive toward the horse; it's more of a mindset in yourself. Then it's really easy to just have the horse move around and stuff. But it also could have been because I was really young that those horses were just very well trained to be able to work with noobs.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
I was able to get it to gallop a little bit, trot, and then gallop, and then jump over little thingies. So that's fun.
My brother, that's more advanced than I thought. I thought you just sat on it.
No, I did it for like a month or so, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
My brother got into that, and then that was one of his many fads. He had a lot of those, one of his many hobbies. And I never did that. I'm like, I never saw the point of it. It's like, I can't drive a horse.
But now you're changing your mind? Now you'd be down?
Well, now I romanticize the West, all the Western ideal.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
That whole
Where
thing.
would you get the ranch?
I don't know, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, somewhere up in the mountains.
Mm.
In a valley. It would be in a valley ranch. So it'd be like one of those big, broad valleys in the Rockies.
Gotta watch out for those wolves.
I'd have a gun.
You know what is a good idea for our next trip? We should go somewhere where we can go to a gun range and shoot. What do you think? Would you be down?
Love it. Yeah, I'd go shoot.
I mean, the thing with the one eye is really annoying. So I have to
but you have to
that
close
out.
one eye anyway, don't you?
No, the problem is I'm blind in my left eye, but I'm left-handed.
Oh.
So I don't know if that means
'cause
I have to learn to shoot right-handed.
you'd have to shoot right. Oh.
Right?
Oh, that feels so weird.
Right? So I'd have to learn to shoot right-handed, but I still want to try it. So we should try to figure that out for one of our next trips. That would be fun.
That would be fun.
Right?
Well, I think if you anywhere with mountains, they're gonna have a gun range.
Oh, it'll be easy. So what we would do is find a good place to go backpacking, and then on the first day we'll go to a gun range, and then we'll go backpacking.
Yeah.
Because the last day will be like, who knows what'll happen.
Wouldn't that be a good souvenir? I'll buy a gun to bring home.
How are you gonna bring it home? Oh, on the paramotor, obviously.
On the paramotor, yeah.
Can you imagine being up in the sky carrying like an assault rifle?
I'm glad you brought that up. I think that would be really fun.
That would be fun, right? Yeah.
That's a good
I've never
idea.
shot a gun, so
I've only shot a BB gun. That's not a gun.
that doesn't count.
Not a gun.
Yeah.
Doesn't count.
Okay, good. Don't shoot one until we meet up and do this.
I won't. I'm
right.
in Minnesota. I'm not going to drive out myself. I'll look like...
Good.
Oh.
Let's do it.
No, I'll wait.
All right, next question.
Okay. This was not random. It picked 100. Whenever it's not random if it's a big even number like that.
I mean, it is by definition random. Just, of course, 100 is eventually going to get selected. If a technological breakthrough could enable people to travel as quickly and cheaply across the world as they now do between adjacent cities, but at the price of 500,000 deaths a year, would you want the technology developed?
500,000 what?
Deaths a
Deaths?
year.
That seems pretty small.
The technology is one that allows for basically instant travel. So like 30 minutes to get from where you are to London or Tokyo.
This is a big cost-benefit analysis all wrapped up. Because what it is essentially like how much emissions are you saving from airline travel doing this? Not an insignificant amount. Number two, are you going to be able to make people's lives better off and increase income? Thereby, generally, as you see income rise, you see kind of the impact on the planet decrease, and you see people live longer, have better lives, or live when they wouldn't have. But on the other hand, does that outweigh 500,000 deaths a year? I don't know. I can't do that math. But whatever side came out, if you did the cost benefit, whatever side, I would just opt for that. I don't think there's a moral, for me at least, a moral stand on this. Like, I don't think there's some moral obligation to pursue a technology that would do that. I think it's simply is this make people better off, or does it not make people better off when you do all the math? So I don't have an answer.
While you were talking, I quickly looked up the number of deaths from vehicle crashes, from automobile accidents a year, and it's 1.3 million. So we're talking about less than half the number of automobile deaths. Now, that's obviously terrible.
But you're adding that on to what is already happening. So it's not a trivial amount, and you don't know what kind of economic damage is caused by losing 500,000 people a year. That could be that's trillions of dollars.
My assumption here is that the deaths are going to be tied to the people who are using the technology.
Oh, it would kill the people using it?
Well, I'm guessing it's like cars, right? So no. So my assumption here is that it's the
that's
same
a really high percentage
kind of thing as cars, right? Where the people who are using it are the people who are at risk of dying. Now, my moral calculus changes dramatically if that's not the accurate assumption. Because if that is the accurate assumption, then it's like lay out the risks and be like, hey, here's the probabilities. Here are the probabilities that you have, and go for it. Like, go at it if you want to use this technology, whatever it is. Right. But if we're saying like 500,000 deaths a year for people who are totally unrelated to the actual technology and the people who are using the technology to get from point A to point B, then I don't think it's conscionable, because you're talking about independent individuals who did not sign up or opt in to taking on that additional risk. And that risk is dramatically high enough that it's not worth it as an externality.
And there's also a question of the restrictions on it, right? So like, could you have 100,000 people all travel to North Korea at the same time? Like, I mean, or could they all travel to a beautiful park in the Amazon and completely destroy it? So there's also that.
Like, what becomes accessible geographically?
Well, everything is now accessible, right?
Yeah, but are we talking? Is it similar to airports where you have to stop at a hub, or is it?
Oh, there's too many questions. I guess if it was like ports, that would make more sense. That you had to have one set up.
Yeah,
on both.
So that you can restrict travel to like the depths of the Amazon.
Right. So you could you could put limits on capacity. Yeah. Or on the number that came through.
What if it was like a Star Trek style transporter, but every like fifth person gets evaporated? And
that's a really high mortality rate. I wouldn't take that chance.
I would not take that chance either. What if it was like 1 in 500? Would you take that chance?
Well, it depends on how much it costs. That's another thing.
Good point. Good point.
Like, if it was the same as air travel, if it cost the same as air travel, no, I wouldn't take that chance. I would fly because it flies way less than 1 in 500.
And if it was the cost of a Subway sandwich?
See, that changes it a little bit. But the thing is, then
how much is your life worth, Scott? Come on.
Well, but because then it's like, how many times do you do it? Do you do it one time or do you do it multiple times? Right? Because the risk factor goes up if you do it more and more and more. If it was 1 in 500, if it was 1 in 500, and I had to do it, or like it was really, there was like very limited other options, and it was 1 in 500, I might consider it. I'd be more comfortable like 1 in a million.
Yeah.
I'm not a gambler.
Well, it's an interesting
I
premise. I don't know if we came to any conclusions, but
there's a lot of information left out that would be necessary.
Yeah, I think
to
so.
Reach it.
I agree.
That was a good one.
Go for another.
Good job, Google generator. 121.
121. Man, this wine tastes really weedy.
Is that because you put weed in it?
Yeah, the weed honey. But it's really strong. It's weird.
You're gonna get not. We better finish this podcast, otherwise it's gonna be an incoherent.
I know.
About
Jesus.
30
We're
minutes.
gonna have to cancel that episode like we did last time. All right. So 121. Child pornography carries heavy penalties. Should virtual child pornography involving consenting adults and lifelike computer-generated images, but no actual children, carry such penalties too? If so, why? I can start. I think that... So obviously, child pornography carries heavy penalties, and acting on pedophilic urges carries heavy penalties for a very, very strong reason. I don't think we have to debate that. I also think, though, that it's highly likely that certain people in our society have certain psychological urges that they have a difficulty controlling. And some of these people don't necessarily want to carry out on those urges and are mortified themselves by the fact that they have those urges. And so if you can find a way to make it easier for those people to live in our society and be safer in our society when it comes to those risks, then I think that that's a benefit if it's not actively hurting any individuals. In a lot of ways, I think it's just it's like a psychological disease, right? There was this example of a guy who ended up having this tumor growing in his brain, and he didn't know about that, but he started getting these pedophilic urges. And when he went to the hospital, they realized that he had this massive tumor in his brain, so they removed it, and those urges declined. And they were eliminated completely. And then several years later, they came back again, so they went back to the hospital and realized there was another tumor growing in the same spot in his brain. And so a lot of it can be pinpointed to psychological disease, right?
I'm trying to think of that. Well, there's obviously precedent for banning online material, be it sexual or graphic or what have you. So there's obviously precedent for that, and in many cases, good reason. I mean, you have the whole rating system, G, PG, etc. for this reason. I would be worried. So I agree with you on what you've said, that perhaps for many people it is a physiological disorder that can be fixed in many cases.
Or at least managed.
Managed, definitely.
Yeah.
Fixed in some cases, or managed extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think watching child pornography manages it or fixes it, regardless of whether it's real or not real. And with everything that is an addiction, of which pornography is an addiction, you want more of it, and you want to do it in the case of pornography in real life. You want to actually act on it. And this is a challenge. Now, not everyone, it's not universal, but this is a lot of research has shown this is one of the drivers behind violence and sexual violence behind women is that men see this in pornography and think that it is actually okay to do. Now, child pornography is a very different kind of thing because, you know, a lot of pornography, the acts aren't illegal that they're doing, but it's the same concept, right? That if you're watching it and watching it and watching it,
it becomes normalized to you.
It becomes normalized, and you think, well, maybe it's not so bad if I do this in real life, or I really want to do this in real life now because I want to move on to the next stage of this addiction. So I think it is a really troublesome. It's very troublesome when alternatives exist to managing it. Now we don't do a good job of this in society. I mean, there's a lot we should do.
Well, I'm curious. What are the alternatives toward management in society?
There's talk therapy. That's a big one. That is successful in managing it. That we don't utilize in this culture.
What is
like
talk
with a counselor, with a therapist, talking through it.
Oh, okay.
You talk through it, and it's very effective. There's medication, to some level that can control it, or the urge to act on it. So, and there's the whole thing of not kind of blacklisting these people, you know, because you know they are acting on, you know, many times I think they don't want to be doing what they are doing. So I think there's a lot of restorative justice that we could look at in this area that would be much better focus for our attention than to not legalize something that could potentially lead to very slippery slopes and has proven to do so in pornography in general. So,
that's interesting. The goal is obviously get people ideally rehabilitated, or if that's not possible, get them to a place where they're not actually explicitly acting on their urges and they're managing this issue in whatever means possible. And so my thought on this is just that I don't know the data myself, but if this were an option, this like kind of pornography were an option for those people, as disgusting that it is to me and as disgusting as it is to you, if that ultimately moves the needle, then it's worth it. But if it doesn't, like you're saying, and there's data to prove that, then that shouldn't be the option to
because
be
then
pursued,
everyone could
right?
access. I or you could stumble upon this and
be fucking mortified, yeah. But at the same time, it's like,
or get addicted to it.
I don't think. I mean,
I'm not saying you or me specifically.
No, I'm just. I just have a hard time imagining people who don't already have some pedophilic tendencies to get hooked on something like that.
But I think that's I have addictive tendencies in general. Runs my family. If someone gave me a bunch of drugs, I might get addicted to them. I stay away from those drugs. Right? I don't think it's like there are a lot of people who may have the tendency to have some sort of psychological enjoyment out of this who don't act on it. But if they were given the option to look at it freely, that may trigger something in their mind, because that is another thing. People who have addictive personalities, certain types of traits, if you show them something or if you introduce them to something, they can become addicted to that. So I think it's very dangerous to have it wide open to everybody.
That's fair. Yeah. That's complicated.
I know it goes against your grain of open everything, but libertarianism.
It does. It does.
Okay, next question. Yeah. There's a role for both sides.
Yeah, that's fair.
138.
138. I kind of had to pee.
My beer's gone.
My wine's gone. What are your two most compulsive habits? Do you struggle to break them? If so, What would it feel like to accept them and give up on trying to change? Jesus.
I know that.
What?
Picking my fingernails and binge eating, and I have accepted them.
Picking your fingernails?
Chewing them.
Oh, chewing your fingernails and
chewing
binge eating.
Yep. So I don't know. I will just eat a bunch of but then I exercise, so I manage it.
Yeah, you manage it.
I don't know. I don't really care about my fingernails. I gave up with that.
Mine are surprisingly similar. I don't pick at my fingernails, but I pick at the calluses that I have on my hands, where, like, the opposite side of the knuckles. What do you call that?
Oh, I know exactly what those are. Yeah.
Like right where your fingers start, right before where your fingers start. I pick at those constantly. It's gotten worse as I started climbing. And so that's probably the worst one. And then for me, it's like, it's not eating specifically, and it's not drinking specifically, but it's like a combination of stimulus, right? So whether it's weed or drinking or eating, it's like some kind of stimulus. I always just get tired of being bored and not having some kind of sensory experience of that form. And I think that working out actually plays into this a bit. And so I feel like I'm addicted to having something that's not static as an external stimulus in my system, which means I overeat, same as you. I drink too much. I smoke too much. I exercise too much as well. It's part of that. So, I don't know.
It's the first time I ever heard you say that.
My body's falling apart with all the running because now I've switched to unsustainable exercise that my body can't handle because I can't handle all the running. And so fucking my knees are hurting, my ankles are hurting. I messed up, I was doing too much pulling and I messed up my rotator cuff. And so I have an issue there and now I can't do pulling anymore. And I'm legitimately angry. Like, I'm angry. Like, I feel a boiling rage when I go to work out and I realize I can't do pulling exercises, and I sometimes do them anyway because I'm just terrible at self-control. And so,
I'm sorry to hear that, Steve.
The rotator cuff? Yeah, it's really, really annoying.
I feel for you because I know what that feel. I mean, I know what it feels like to not exercise the way you want to.
It's terrible.
I know what it feels like.
I can't do any pulling exercises. Any of them.
So, like, you can't climb.
No. It sucks. It really sucks.
Steve.
And I let it get pretty bad.
Well, your climbing gym's closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do your pull-ups.
I can't do pull-ups. I can't do front lever. I can't do rows. I can't do anything like that. Usually pulling takes up like 50% of my workout, and I can't do it, and it really sucks. I'm gaining weight because of it, because I don't work out as much, because I'm not as motivated to do it, because I'm not as excited about it. It sucks. Yeah, it's terrible.
Get some pushing. Push. What can you? It's hard. Pushing's a lot harder.
Pushing, I do like ring dips, ring push-ups. I do pike push-ups. Have you done pike push-ups? Oh, you should do pike push-ups. Do you know what pike push-ups are?
Let me look at it really quick. I'll know what it. If I look at it, that image, I'll know what it is.
It's really good for shoulders.
Oh. Well, okay. So it's like a overhead press, but with your body weight in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I get what that is.
I do it with my feet up on my standing desk.
Oh, I see. I see someone doing that.
And then my hands are on these parallettes, like the bars that do this. So I can dip really low.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
There's
Which is the
photo.
proper way to do it. This like bullshit with your feet on the ground is ridiculous.
See, if I didn't have a home gym, I would be doing all of this probably. But the problem is, I can just do overhead presses.
Yeah, you have all the equipment.
Which I know is not as good for your core. But
it's not. But I mean, if you got the equipment, why not use it? All right, I'm gonna grab a drink. All right. Number. Give me a number.
45.
45. If you could kill people simply by imagining their deaths and saying the word goodbye, would you use the power? Assume they die natural death and no one would suspect you.
Oh my god, no. I have a no.
No? Just 100% no?
Absolutely not. I would be afraid of what I would do. I have a very wild imagination.
Oh, you're afraid you can't control it and you'll fuck up.
Yeah.
Like you'll be really high one day and then oh shit.
Or not high. No, I would absolutely. That would scare the fuck out of me. I couldn't do that. Absolutely is 100% unequivocal.
So for me, it's like, can I get a specific window of time in which this power works and then have it shut down?
That might be better.
The concern is, even if there is somebody you'd want to kill, like some kind of dictator or something like that, you don't know what the knock-on effects of that are, right? You don't know what the fuck's going to happen. And so little old me, the dumbass that I am, thinking that he can play God and with the snap of his fingers, my fingers, take out heads of state or leaders of terrorist organizations. Who the fuck knows what that's going to do, right? We've sent in U.S. troops to kill terrorist organizations and have more threatening ones come up in their place, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me to come in and say, I know what's right and I know how to, in net, make the world a better place by eliminating certain people, and most definitely people in positions of authority, would be ridiculous. So actually we'll rapidly backpedal on what I said and say, no, I would not want that power.
It would actually be easier to say someone like Trump, because if it's a natural death, we understand how the American system would work in that case. I would never do that because I think there's so ramifications that would just be.
Trump doesn't deserve to die. Yeah, but even if we did, like, Trump himself wouldn't deserve to die, which is like,
no, he shouldn't.
Yeah.
No. I think a lot of liberals would say Trump, and I say, if that would be if I had to pick some person, if I had to, it would probably be someone where, like, the system, we're taking them out, would be maybe on a level a good thing, and where the system, like, if they weren't there, would be a good thing, and where the system existed to have a very simple, mutually agreed upon by all parties, succession plan, where it didn't really ruffle too many feathers in the grand scheme of things. China is not one of those. Putin is not one of those.
No.
Western democracies are, which shows the power of democracy. Where, like, if you got rid of Trump, you know what would happen next. I mean, it would be a
crazy
show.
Christian fundamentalists would take over.
Pence would take over, and he has more of a head on his shoulders than Trump does, to be perfectly honest. So,
I mean, I don't think that's a controversial statement.
No, but I not that I ever do that. And I think it's scary to think about what you could affect by doing some of those, just make some of those decisions.
I agree.
Anyway,
next question.
194.
Would you want to choose the sex of your child? Let's start with that part. There are add-on questions, but start with that. Let me ask you this. If you have a kid, would you want a boy or a girl?
I'd want two. I'd want a boy and a girl.
If you could only have one.
A girl.
A girl? Why?
Because I didn't have a sister, and I wish I had. I feel like I'd be better with women if I had a sister. So that's a weird answer, but
it's a weird way to think about it because most likely you'd be out of the game at that point.
I would be, but it's like, well, I guess it's kind of silly because there would be like, I could only have one child, but if I had a son and a daughter, I could like live vicariously, like, oh, I'm helping him better understand women, and I could be a. This is so self-serving.
It's a very self-serving way to think about it, but isn't childbirth in general very self-serving?
That's so self-serving. What about you?
No. Before that, let's say you could only have one child. Would you choose the sex if you could? Would you choose to make sure that it's a girl if you had the power?
Wait, isn't that part of this? That's the same question.
No, I asked you, would you rather have a boy or a girl? Now I'm asking you, would you choose to make sure it's a girl if you could?
No, because I don't care that much.
You don't care enough to make that decision.
No, I don't care enough to make that decision. I don't care enough to make that decision.
Yeah. Okay. My honest answer is I don't know. I haven't thought about kids. I don't know if I want kids at this point. Well, to be honest, at this point, I don't want kids. And
I hope not.
In the foreseeable future, I don't see that being on the table. As in the future I foresee is max 3 years ahead, right? I don't try to think beyond 3 years into my future.
I think you have a 5-year window at least. No offense.
5-year window for what?
For not having kids.
Probably. At least.
I think so.
And so because of that, I haven't given it enough thought to know one way or the other. A boy would probably be easier. Right.
I've heard boys... everyone says both are awful. I think children are awful.
Yeah, that's why I'm not sold on the idea of having kids. Or the idea of marriage. It was really weird to me. I don't know if I told you this. For the audience... What audience? For the audience, I have a twin brother. And when we were visiting our parents back in Japan over this last winter, we were at a bar talking, and my brother was talking about how he's dating this girl, and he casually brought up, we don't have that much time left, to figure out how to settle down. And I was like, back up a second. You want to settle down, as in you want to get married. And he said, yes, of course. I want to get married. I want to have kids someday. And this took me by utter surprise. I was so shocked because I'm not thinking about that shit at all. Like, it's still open to debate about whether or not I want to get married, let alone have kids. Like, I haven't even thought about that yet. And it's weird to me that my twin brother is already thinking about and realizes that he knows he wants to get married and have kids. That was kind of crazy to me.
Knowing your brother, I don't think I'm totally surprised.
Really?
I think he needs... Okay, I don't know your brother. I don't know your brother at all. Like, I've met him maybe 4 or 5 times, max.
Yep.
He strikes me as someone who needs someone to hold him down and to, like, tell him what's up. Like, he...
He needs a woman in his life.
He needs a woman in his life.
But why the
like,
kids?
Tell him what's up.
But why the
because
kids?
Because it's hand in hand. It goes hand in hand.
I guess that's true.
It goes hand in hand. You get married, you're going to have kids.
That's true. But it really seems like he wants to have kids. Which is weird. They seem like parasites to me. Anyway, okay, so here's the next part of this question, which becomes more interesting. What if you could safely pick other qualities? IQ, height, temperament, looks.
Oh, I know where you fall on that.
Of course. Pick the best of the best as much as possible. Because everybody else is going to be doing it.
No, I don't want to have this conversation right now.
Seriously?
We don't ever agree on this. It's just...
Oh, we should all be natural as much as possible. Except for the fact that our entire society defies death every fucking day. And defies nature.
That's not my argument. My argument is about the negative social ramifications of the power to be able to do that. But we can get to that another time. We're not talking about that today. Please don't. I'm so sick of having that conversation. I will never convince you, and you will never convince me.
I really think I could eventually convince you.
No, you won't. When I dig my heels in on something, I dig my heels in.
You religious fundamentalist, you. All right, let's go on to the next question.
Let's go to the next question. 36.
If you were to die this evening with no opportunity to communicate with anyone, what would you most regret not having told someone?
Who is the audience for this book? Who do they think is going to... I just picture a sad old man reading this book he bought from Amazon because it got good reviews and it was recommended because he got some shitty romance novel, reading that question and just thinking, wow, my life really sucks right now.
Also, can you believe that this author wrote his name, Gregory Stock, comma, PhD? How pretentious is that?
Oh, you do have to be a doctor to come up with these profound questions.
So profound.
Oh my god! Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I can repeat the question. If you were to die this evening with no opportunity to communicate with anyone, what would you most regret not having told someone?
Yeah, I don't. That's pretty deep.
I think that no matter what answer you come up with, it's going to be an answer in the moment, and that's not going to reflect a true representation of the hierarchy of values and relationships in your life.
Okay, good.
I think that in general, in a time of stress, you jump to immediate passions. And so the people you first think about are not the people that you would think about if you were in a more calm and recent state. And so for me, it's like, is the question an implicit ask of who is the most important person to you and what is the most important thing you've refused to tell them or you've resisted telling them? Or is the question to ask of, in the immediate passions of a crisis state, who do you first jump to? And I don't know.
I guess I see the question as more of what impactful thing have you been planning on saying to someone or have really wanted to say but haven't because it's just weird or inopportune or you don't have the time.
So what is that for you?
Well, I don't know what it would be, but I would imagine it can go one of two ways. Like you can, and this is why I think last words are really challenging because you could say something that like scars someone for the rest of their life, or you could say something that really makes them happy for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. So you have to think about the impact on the other person. So I could say, for example, if I never came out to my mother or my father about being bisexual and I told them I was bisexual, it was like the thing I really wanted to tell them, that wouldn't make them feel very good. Because like,
would that be something that you would want to tell them?
It may be. They know, so it's a moot point. But it may be. Like, I really want them to know my sexuality. It's like, that puts them in a really shitty spot, because, like, you didn't trust us, you didn't, like, feel comfortable enough to, like, tell us that while you're alive. That doesn't feel very good. Or you could say something, so it's like, you have to think about the impact on the person. And so I would want to pick something. It may not be the most meaningful thing I've wanted to say, but I would want to leave, if I'm dying, I want to leave them with something that made them feel really good. So I don't know what that would be, but I would move for something really positive that they would make them feel really good and have, good memories. I don't know what it would be though.
That's nice of you. Awfully nice of you, Scott. It's also a really good way of deflecting the actual question. But
I don't know the answer. Okay, so I don't know. I would maybe. Okay. I don't know.
All right.
Do you know?
No, I don't, because I'm not in a situation which death is looming above me. And in a lot of ways, I think it's just impossible to know what I'm going to value the most at that moment unless I'm in that moment. Right. I just don't think I have the capacity, not being in that moment now, to be able to truly understand what it would be like and how I would respond. Mm-hmm. And that sounds like a cop-out if I've ever heard any, but I really believe that. Like, my priorities change moment to moment based on how hungry I am. I mean, am I really going to be able to predict how I prioritize different pieces of information and how I relay them at that moment? I don't think so. So,
yeah, I think that's a good answer to that question. 284.
All right, 284. What would you do if you came home unexpectedly one afternoon and found your spouse or partner on the internet engaged in steamy online role-playing with a cyber lover? Assume they'd been doing it for months, but had never discussed meeting physically.
What would I do?
Yeah.
What kind of question is that?
That's a weird one.
Essentially, it's asking, what if you caught someone you love cheating on you? That's essentially what it's asking.
No, the question is that kind of remote quote unquote relationship communication considered cheating, and how would you respond to it?
Oh, absolutely.
You would say absolutely yes, it is considered
absolutely cheating. It's cheating. Cheating is so much more emotion. Is about emotion, not sex. It is so much more about emotion. Having cheated on my girlfriend and her on me, just very briefly, it is so much more about the emotion tied up in it. It's not anything to really do with sex at all. So yes, it's cheating. What would I do? I've learned not what to do, so I wouldn't do that again. I'd probably yell momentarily. I think that's warranted. And then
would you end the relationship?
No, I'd like to have dialogue. If I like them a lot, I like to have dialogue and I'd like to understand why. I would like to know why about everything. And depending on that conversation, when I may end the relationship, yeah. That's a really unpleasant question.
It's a very unpleasant
Having been
question.
through that, it's very unpleasant. It's just not nice.
I mean, I think my answer is basically the same as yours. I don't see anything that would deviate. Not a great question.
That's not a good question.
All right. Let's do one more question and not end on that one.
203.
203.
Pick another one.
I'll pick another one.
15.
15. Wow, that's
15. We're going low.
Low. Would you like to be famous? If so, for what? What if you knew it meant that within a few years you'd lose all your current friends and never develop new relationships that were as meaningful?
Okay, the question is good, just the first part. What the fuck's up with the second part?
Why don't we just hold off on the second part and just do the first part?
That's more positive. I don't like the second part.
Would you like to be famous? If so, for what?
Yeah, I think it'd be really fun to be a famous architect.
Architect?
Yeah.
Why architecture?
I think architecture is really a human. It's about the human, about the person. I think the most beautiful architecture really... People live in buildings. And I think designing spaces... Well, I guess partly it's a geography major. I think a space is really important to me. And designing... Or I've taught space is really important, and I believe it. And I think designing a space that you can like steer people towards positive interactions with each other, which good architecture can do, I think is really cool. I think that's like really cool and meaningful. And it's not like being famous for having a lot of money, because architects really don't have a lot of money. Even the famous ones aren't super rich. I do think it's a really wholesome, like cool, long, and you're famous forever. Like you're always a famous architect. Like they're Greek famous architects.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool.
It is.
yeah. Anyway, I think it'd be really fun.
Nice.
And not so much the fame part, but the fact if you are really designing excellent architecture, you will become famous. If it's just groundbreaking and fantastic.
It sounds like it's the impact. It's the fact that you've had such an impact on society, such a positive impact on society, that your name is remembered because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
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 Do I want to be famous? I don't know. I think that obviously it really depends on the kind of fame, but if it's based on some kind of contribution I've made in society, like you've been saying, I think that that's worth it. That's really valuable. And that would be fun. It would be enjoyable to be able to understand and leverage the fact that what you say can actually have a positive impact on reality and the life that you lead. And so for me, in terms of what I would like to be famous for, if I were famous, there isn't any one specific thing, but I would like to be a founder in a company that does something interesting. I don't know how to span that beyond that because I'm getting high now. And so,
yeah. I think that was good. Oh, that's a good answer. Okay, so what category of thing would the company do?
So it's an interesting question because when I started getting into software engineering, right, I was really focused on trying to figure out which domain I'm going to apply that to. And at first it was geospatial work. And I was really, really focused on that because it was an easy way for me to anchor the knowledge that I was building. But then as I got more experience and I worked in different areas, I realized that I was more interested in the abstract notion of software development itself. And since then, I found, and this maybe isn't the most attractive way to phrase it, but I'm interested in the idea of complex problems, but that doesn't necessarily align with one specific field. And so my honest answer is I'm not quite sure what that translates to in a field. I just know that it applies to software engineering and technology more broadly. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds like a cop-out.
No.
But it's just hard to say that like 2-3 years from now I'd be working the same field. I mean, like, I work in the field that I work in now partially because I'm passionate about it and I think that we're tackling a serious problem, but also, and I'd say this is a more significant portion of it, because I find myself working in an environment in which I get to solve interesting problems. Yeah.
I don't think that's a cop-out. I think you admire the challenge.
Yeah.
And like to, yeah. Of software.
Yeah, within software and the problem solving in it, but most importantly, when it is aspiring to a goal, right? A goal that I can get behind and see as actually valuable and something worth investing in.
When are you going to get your PhD in computer science, Steve?
I don't think that's ever going to happen.
You sound like someone who...
Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to
wants to be on so far the cutting edge.
I do. I just don't think I'm technically capable of doing it.
Oh, yes, you are.
Maybe.
Gotta go to academia, man. It's good for something. It's good for making big mistakes, and a lot of them, with no monetary compensation for them.
True. Do you have any final thoughts before we close out this episode?
It's hard doing final thoughts in a book on these questions.
I know.
I think they're good questions. Good job, Google, for picking the questions.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, all things considered, we're hanging in there. Make it work. Everyone stay safe.
Yeah, make it work.
Cool.
Stay safe.
See you next week.
See ya.